Well, hello and welcome to Commodity Champions. I'm Manisha Gupta, and the SEBI orders this week barred 5 broking firms from dealing in commodities, declaring them as not fit and proper. Among these are Motilal Oswal, IFL, Anand Rathi, Geofin and Philips Commodities India. The regulator has an ongoing investigation against another 295 firms on similar charges in the NSEL case. More than 90% of contracts on the NSEL were paired contracts, and all 300 brokers traded on that exchange issued paired contracts to their clients. In the normal course, this order should have created chaos and rattled the commodity derivatives market, its volumes or participation, but that clearly hasn't been the case. SEBI, which took over the regulation of the commodity market from the Forward Market Commission after the scam in NSEL came to light, allowed the broking activities in equities and commodity derivatives to be integrated into one entity in 2017 by amending the securities contract regulation rules. Many of the commodity brokers applied for membership for dealing in commodity derivatives through their parent arm, dealing in equity and equity derivatives. All the 5 brokers have a huge active client list, and SEBI has specifically only barred the commodity broking entities that traded on NSEL and has not touched their promoters, parent companies, etc. Joining us to talk more about that now is Rajesh Baheti. He's President, Association of National Exchanges Members of India. Rajesh, hi, thank you so much for taking time out. It clearly has been a busy week as we've been trying to talk to all the stakeholders in the industry on what these orders mean. Is it too delayed? Is it too weak? Is it in the right direction? What really has been your initial sense?
Well, and at NME, we believe that these orders are not proper because A, the brokers did not have the kind of role to play in that entire scam as is made out to be. What happened is that you must understand that the exchange per se was legal. All it was not governed by FMC and SEBI at that time. But the exchange was definitely legal. It was set up under the Consumer Affairs Ministry. Sharad Pawar was looking after it.
Right.
And the entire exchange was legally set up. It had great parentage coming out of FTIL, who promoted MCX and MCX SX. And some of the contracts, so it turns out that this exchange launched turned out to be illegal. Now, just for a moment, understand, I'm a broker. I become a member of an exchange where, you know, all the clearing banks have participated. You had the likes of SBI and other PSU banks and private sector banks participating. It was so-called promoted by NAFED, and MMTC had a role to play in it. So here is an exchange which appears completely legal. It is legal. It launches few contracts, of which some of them turn out to be illegal. Now, me as a broker, am I supposed to check? The question number one, am I supposed to check?
I'm assuming yes, you have to check.
I have to check whether every contract issued by an exchange is legal or illegal. I mean, have you checked that everything that the NSE does, or every contract that the NSE has launched or the BSE has ever launched, has been legal?
Rajesh, during this week, we've actually tried and spoken to all stakeholders, whether it is the broking companies themselves, whether it is the investors, whether it is the exchange promoter itself. And we do understand that the kind of situation that we stand right now is everybody seems to be, putting a finger to each other is the kind of situation that is there. But does it really seem to be solving the crisis? Are the monies still coming? Where are we when it comes to the concern, the major problem really?
Yeah, so let's understand one thing. The charge that you levy on somebody should be independent of what has happened. Now, I'm just asking you for a moment, if all these monies were paid out, if there were no bad debts, if this exchange had not blown up, but had just shut this contract and everybody had received their money, would any of these charges have ever been made? I think the answer you and I know both well, the answer is no, nothing of this would have happened, no charges would have been made. These charges have only been made because something terrible has happened in that exchange as a default to the tune of 5,600 odd crores. But who has defaulted and who has perpetrated the default? The defaulters are the 24 members who were allowed to carelessly borrow money without depositing the requisite commodities, underlying commodities, into the warehouses that were governed by the exchange. That was supposed to have been the exchange function of making sure that the underlying commodities are in place. So the perpetrators are clearly the exchange, its management, its parent companies, and the borrowers. Now, by shifting the entire lens onto the brokers that acted as agents
or
merely to facilitate the trades is really shooting the messenger, I would say. I'll just give you a small example. Unitech, the promoters are in jail for having sold n number of houses never delivered. I'm sure they were all sold through real estate agents. So are those real estate agents to be blamed for selling those products promoted by Unitech which never got made or delivered?
But Rajesh, the question still arises with everybody shifting blame to the next person. This is like a never-ending vicious cycle that we seem to be entering in.
Unfortunately, the focus should always and only have been to first recover all the monies. Now you've got to go after the properties of the borrowers. You've got to look at what is the benefit that the NSEL management and its parent derived out of the profits of this exchange, and then go after these entities. What have the brokers done? They've just acted as agents to sell a product that appeared extremely legitimate when it was on the NSEL. And let's not understand, this was not an underground operation that the NSEL undertook. It was all over the websites. It was a declared contract. Everybody knew about that this was going on. It took 2 to 3 years for the ministry and the FMC itself to correspond between each other to even figure out whether they should be allowing this or not. So it was not as if this was some underground chit fund that was operating and the brokers took part in it.
Rajesh, since we have you with us, where would you say the checks and balances is something that everybody seems to have missed on the line, whether it is the exchange, or whether it is the brokers or the investors, clients who actually traded on the platform via these brokers?
So I'm not saying for a moment that the brokers have not made a mistake. Sure, they made an error in judgment, but it's a judgment error. Satyam scam took place, and at 11 a.m. Ramalinga Raju wrote a letter to the exchanges that I have nothing in my bank balances. I'm sure at the very moment there may have been 20 or 50 buy reports coming out of brokerages. So everybody acts in good faith. When you see the numbers on the ground, you act in good faith. NSEL was the counter guarantor for all the trades. NSEL said we have some requisite SGF. NSEL was operating like any other exchange, except for the fact that they were not governed under the FMC. Now, why they were not governed under the FMC should be asked to the government of that day. So honestly, if somebody paints a picture that looks as good as any other picture that you've been dealing with, and you get fooled, it's
Rajesh,
just a bad
I get
incident.
that, but tell me, where do the investors go now? Because they will go to the people they can see or point finger at. So it is the brokers, it is the exchange, it is the promoters, etc. They need their money back, and until I think that happens, this backlash, this whole the grieving situation, or the investors who keep coming out with the kind of language and with the kind of concerns that is there will just about continue. So where do we stand right now? Where do we go from here apart from this?
See, if I was an investor, yeah, I would try my luck with everybody concerned. So maybe the borrowers first. If I can't get any breakthrough, I'll go to the exchange. If I can't get any breakthrough, then I'll look at my brokers because they're apparently still in business. And unfortunately, this is what is happening. But the fact remains that the borrowers' assets, and we still get to hear every day that over 6,000 crores of assets have been frozen. I fail to understand why are they not getting liquidated? Why does it take so much time for this to come to some conclusion? Look at the Bernie Madoff scam. In 6 months he was in jail. Whatever had to happen happened. Why are none of these borrowers in jail? What's happening? So really the focus should have been on the borrowers. Unfortunately, some people have convinced some other people to take the focus off the borrowers and take it to the intermediaries.
So what are you hearing on ground now, and what are the procedures? Because this is a question I've actually been asking all the stakeholders on. Where do we stand right now? What is lacking? If everybody is cooperating with the authorities, why is the thing not getting pushed? That, of course, is my one question, Rajesh. The other is the SEBI order that only has barred an arm, and we do understand from the brokers that the business is as usual, because after the unified license, almost everything seems to have shifted to the securities or the parent arm. Does the order really mean anything at all then?
Per se, in terms of losing business, no. But after all, this is a reputational black mark. And none of these guys would want a reputational black mark to, soil their reputation forever. Because every time they go to a bank, for facilities, or every time they approach somebody, this is going to be part of their history. So everybody would like to get this off. And I'm sure they will appeal, even though in monetary terms it means nothing because none of these companies were active. But the fact remains that why has SEBI only barred these arms? I think somewhere deep inside, even SEBI understands that really these people were just agents got taken in by this whole idea that was built by this exchange. And unfortunately, they had also to be seen to take some action. So they are saying, okay, we'll take this limited action. But if you ever raise the larger point, I would raise the same point. If the guy is not good enough to do this, why is he good enough to do that? Which is exactly the same thing, except in a different company.
So brokers also have had their monies on the exchange, as was the case with the clients also. So again, this is a question I keep pushing yet again. So what happens from now? When do we actually see the monies being disbursed? I think that would really put an end to the matter.
All of us are saying exactly the same thing. Go after the borrowers, go after the money, go after those assets. First, let's get the money back as much as we can. I'm sure if they try hard enough, they can get, a good chunk of this money. Now, there are various cases pending in various courts. I think the focus of all the authorities should be on nailing those assets, to get those assets auctioned, to, even that merger issue is pending in the Supreme Court. I think we all need to push for faster judgments on all those cases so we can at least get the chunk of the money back. Brokers themselves have 1,000 crores of proprietary money stuck in this. So honestly speaking, if the brokers were trying to push a product they knew was A, risky, and B, illegal, why would anybody put their own money in this?
One final word from you, Rajesh, before we thank you. What is your sense on this whole thing? Because the way it has been, we saw the settlement problem come in 2012. We are in 2019 right now. What would you say about the kind of progress that has been made, let's say, for the last 5 to 6 years?
See, I mean, in some respects, I think the entire judiciary, the whole system in our country does not deliver justice on time. We've seen Harshad Mehta judgments coming in 2018 and 19. I mean, this is really unfortunate. Some of the Ketan Parekh cases are still going on. So really, I think we've got to move and maybe create some special courts, some tribunals that handle such kind of cases which are more technical in nature than, your regular cases, and get these sorted out. We need to set a time limit of 365 to 700 days, a year or two, just like the IBC code has a target. Once we have that target, two things will happen. A, people will not defraud the world so often because everybody gets away with it, and that's what they think. And B, we'll get the investors who even lose their money likely to get some recovery really quickly.
Well, that point is taken well. Rajesh, thank you so much for joining us. Well, that's yet another view from a stakeholder, really. Remember, this has been a busy week when it comes to yet another orders from SEBI on the NSEL case. The matter, remember, is still sub judice, and it is being carried on with various regulatory authorities, etc. So there is a lot yet to come on this. But as I said, one buzzing week when it comes to this one. With that, we'll go for a short break. When we come back, we will have the agriculture former SECI, Siraj Hussain, joining us to talk about the latest views and cues that have been coming in from the government policy reforms. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and you're still with us on Commodity Champions. It was the government's most ambitious announcement in the interim budget, a 75,000 crore scheme promising direct cash transfer to an estimated 12 crore small and marginal farmers across India. The Prime Minister launched the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi scheme in Gorakhpur, Uttar Pradesh, and with the elections round the corner, Uttar Pradesh and the eastern region in particular are crucial for all parties. The government's officials have passed on 1.01 crore beneficiaries as identified. They claim that the states like UP, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh and Haryana are leading in identifying the list of beneficiaries. States governed by the opposition like Kerala, Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh seem to be lagging behind. West Bengal and Madhya Pradesh are likely to skip the launch, with both states having questioned the merits of the scheme. Madhya Pradesh has also raised questions over what it calls an aggressive deadline by the central government. And to discuss the scheme further, we have with us now the former Agri Secretary, Siraj Hussain. Mr. Hussain, hi, thank you so much for joining us. What has been your sense with most states still uplinking the farmers' details, and some of the states haven't really done that? How successful do you see the whole procedure being?
Actually, in 2014, this government had set up Shanta Kumar Committee under the chairmanship of Mr. Shanta Kumar, who was Minister for Food and Public Distribution in Vajpayee government. And that committee had given several recommendations, including reduction in food subsidy by reducing the number of people covered under National Food Security Act from 67% to about 40%. Similarly, they had made several recommendations relating to direct benefit transfer of fertilizer subsidy. However, the government did not make much effort to build a consensus for direct payment of subsidies, and as a result of that, the subsidies have continued, and now this scheme has come. I very much doubt whether this government, of course, cannot do it, but even for the next government, it is not going to be easy, especially if there is no clear majority.
Mr. Hussain, also, what is your sense on the prices of many of the commodities? Because we do understand that with the current Kharif and Rabi crop commodities that have seen the arrivals would start coming in pretty soon, the prices of many of these crops continue to be below MSP. The procurement of the governments, of course, have begun, but we've seen that number majorly for rice, wheat, pulses and oilseeds. Would you call all of this enough?
Actually, the Rabi crop arrivals will start in about a month's time, especially in Gujarat and Rajasthan, where arrivals take place a little earlier than Punjab and Haryana. In Punjab and Haryana, the major wheat crop growing areas, the arrivals peak in middle of April. It is not realistic to think that the government will be able to procure all the commodities, but I do think that this year the mustard crop is going to be very good, and as a result of that, it is possible that the prices of mustard may go much below MSP. In fact, some tinkering of import duty may also be allowed, because I understand that due to a bilateral treaty with Indonesia and Malaysia, the duty rates have come down, even in comparison to other Southeast Asian countries. So a lot of tweaking of these things will require. I only hope that even during the election campaign, the officers will find time and the ministers will give them the authority to take these decisions.
What is your sense then, Mr. Hussain, whether it needs tinkering or improving in cold chain, storages, warehouse receipts, etc.? We do understand that there are plenty of meetings happening right now, and the government will want to push as much as they can before we hear those election dates. We've seen the cabinet meeting over the week as well, try and push as much as it can on sugar or otherwise. What is your sense on what more can we see before we hit those dates?
Actually, there are just about 970 warehouses registered with the Warehousing Development and Regularity Authority, called WDRA, just about 970 in the whole of India. In fact, in some states like Bihar, when I wrote an article a couple of months back, there was only one godown. Similarly, in West Bengal, in Northeast, there is not a single warehouse registered with WDRA. So this ecosystem of WDRA has not really taken off so far, even though a lot of efforts have been made by WDRA. But for a variety of reasons, presently the warehouse receipts issued by unregistered warehouses are also considered by banks for financing, and no preference is being given by banks to warehouses, receipts issued by warehouses, negotiable receipts issued by warehouses which are registered with WDRA. So I think as soon as the next government takes over, some rethink on this will be necessary if we want the agriculture economy to get formalized, because this will be a very good system under which the electronic negotiable warehousing receipts, very much like the demat of shares, can be traded electronically across India. So it will bring a lot of formalization to agriculture economy, which will be very good for farmers.
Mr. Hussain, one final question before we let you go. So, just pushing that point yet again on, do you think after this very ambitious scheme of the government about, direct transfer of an assured income into 12 crore farmers' accounts, with just few weeks away from the election date coming in or code of conduct applies, what is your sense on what the government will want to push in for the agri sector in sense of a manifesto or promises perhaps?
I do not know what will go in the manifesto, but as far as I am concerned, I would like to see the political parties commit to a process of consensus building rather than fighting with each other all the time on loan waivers, on direct income transfer, etc. There has to be a GST-like effort of bringing all the states on the same platform to undertake market reforms, because we have seen that even in the state of Gujarat and Maharashtra, the marketing reforms which were supposed to precede the ENAM have not really taken place. So some kind of consensus building, very strong consensus building there is required. And also I would like to see in the manifestos the political parties commit to making large investments in agriculture infrastructure. This government started very well with Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, and 99 projects were supposed to be completed over a period of next 2-3 years, but somehow that has not quite happened. So a lot of investment is needed in agriculture, and I hope the parties will commit themselves to undertake that investment.
Oh, that would be a good one to listen to. Yes, Mr. Hussain, thank you so much for joining us. Well, that's the view really coming in from the expert, that large investments in agriculture is something that is desirable. Gujarat, Maharashtra, of course, have been a couple of very progressive states, but even here, the marketing reforms really have not taken off. And as far as the warehousing receipts goes, well, the banks are honoring warehousing receipts from unregistered warehouses also is something to keep an eye on. We perhaps will hear more on that, as Mr. Hussain pointed out, in days to come. Well, that's all that we have on this episode of Commodity Champions. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more on CNBC TV 18.